So notice is hereby given that the above call meeting of the governing body of the city of Alpine Heights, Texas, will be held on Monday, January 13, 2025, at 6 p.m. in the Justice Center located at 3300 Hillcrest Drive, Alpine Heights, Texas 78201, to consider and act upon any lawful subject which may come before said meeting, including among others, the following items to be discussed and acting on. I will state that we will conduct the meeting in the proper decorum. Anybody that gets out of decorum or does not, under council, as we have been following and I've been asking in the past, under procedure, to ask to be recognized to speak, I will then call that action in the council. So let's move over to call to order, recording of a quorum. We do have a quorum. Complete quorum is available here and present. Invocation and pledges of allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flag. So, who would be the person that would like to do the invocation?
I did it last trip.
Okay.
Oh, to me. Silence, so Oh, Heavenly Father, we are gathered here today to form judgments and make decisions that will affect the lives of those committed to our charge. Please give us wisdom, guide our decisions. May they be fair, just, and merciful, and keep the people of California in peace. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the federal flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, one indivisible.
Thank you. So we have public on the hearing now. At this time, citizens who have filled out a registration form prior to the start of the meeting may speak on any topic they wish to bring to the attention of the governing body, so as long as the topic is not on the agenda for this meeting. During the citizens to be heard section, no council action may take place and no council discussion or response is required to the speaker. Citizens who wish to speak on a specific agenda item, when that item is called for discussion, must first fill out a registration form prior to the start of the meeting indicating which agenda item they wish to address. So we will have, see as they came in. Okay, doesn't appear to have any items on number one. So as we get to these items, then we will go ahead and call the proper individuals to address. So no one has anything, excuse me, let me rephrase that. We have no one that signed up who wants to just publicly speak in general. So we will now move on to the business side. Discussion and possible action to create a working agreement contract for the city administrator. Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to make it clear that this is not for action tonight. I'm just laying out the picture of what's current right now with all the other cities and stuff. This is just to give my colleagues an idea as to what we can do to recommend a good contract, so that way the mayor will be prepared when we interview the city administrators, the mayor can present them with his contract, and of course, they're gonna be negotiating back and forth. And I just wanted to lay out, some information. I want to cover the surrounding areas compensation, the TML, the average compensation, the compensation of the current salaries for surrounding cities, and then we can figure out what we can afford to pay. And we just not touch base on severance package and performance evaluation criteria, vehicle allowance, phone allowance, and professional and civic development. I passed out a packet, you all should have a hard copy packet right now. Let's look at the surrounding area city administrator compensation. I'm not too sure if these numbers are current, but I'm pretty sure they're not too far off, and of course, we can always find out. Leon Valley salaries for city administrator is $160,000. Almost Park is $112,000. Terrell Hills, $124,000. Live Oak, $173,000. Castle Hills, $114,000. Chavana Park, $185,000. Universal City, $212,000. Balcony Sites, $192,000. And this does not include city contributions. And I'm not sure if the rest of the cities, the city contributions are included here. I had asked Mr. Lara to look at the TML website to see what the average salary for a city administrator in the surrounding area is. And this is what he found. And of course, there's only 2 cities here that are pretty close. But anyway, Blanco pays $154, Bernie $243, Converse $172, Elmendorf $133, Fair Oaks $200, Kennedy $84, Schertz $272, Seguin $250, and Uvalde $182. Now let's look at the salaries for our surrounding area administrators. As I said earlier, Leon Valley's at $160. I don't know if that includes the city contributions, like I said. Almus Park, $112, Terrell Hills, $124, Live Oak, $173, Castle Hills, $114, Chavana Park, $185, Balcony Heights, $192, plus the $44,000 on the city contributions. Now, there's been a discrepancy there. I understand it's not 44,000, but it still equals to what, 200,000, Floyd?
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council. Salary for the city administrator, for Mr. Perales was $160,000, not $192. The total city contribution made it just under $200,000.
Okay, and I got these figures from this sheet that was passed out at one of the budget workshops. Okay, if you look at the difference in salary, yeah, Balcony Heights is paying approximately $32,000 more. $80,000 more than Almus Park, $68,000 more than Terrell Hills, $19,000 more than Live Oak, $78,000 more than Castle Hills, Chavana Park, $7,000.
Mayor, may I be recognized? I just want to add a point to what Mr. Valverde. So what Mr. Valverde is comparing is the base salary for the city administrators versus the Balcony Heights combined total compensation that Mr. Perales was receiving. Mr. Perales was receiving, as Mr. Messi said, a little under $200,000. So his base salary was about $162. So we're pretty much in line with Leon Valley. Almost Park is listed as $112,000, but that was their previous city administrator. They just hired a new one. So we don't have that number right now. I'd be surprised if it was still $112,000. So they're looking at that 160. It's kind of in line with what the surrounding administrators, what you've been putting here. So I just wanted to make that point that we need to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, base compensation, base compensation.
Okay. Looking at the history of the administrator's salary, in 2015, he started with $115,000. In 2022, Balcony Heights was paying the city administrator $180,000. Am I correct, Lloyd? More or less? And this is according to public records, what I found. So the salary was 255% higher than the average and 208% higher than the median salary in the city of Balcony Heights. If you remember the presentation I made about the city comparison with other surrounding cities, it seems our city pays more than other cities with greater revenue. I've noticed that the most common statement is, our city is small and we have a lot to deal with. X thousands of cars traveling through our city, dealing with developers, etc. Our city is 1 square mile. We're landlocked. We don't have any major development. How can other larger cities manage these issues and pay less than our city? Let's look at what we can afford. Next slide. The salary from 192 to 112, what almost Park pays, the city will be saving approximately 80,000. If reduced to 114, what Castle Hill pays, we'll be saving 78,000. If reduced to 124 to what Turtle Hills pays, we'll be saving 168,000. 68,000, I'm sorry. So if we take the average of Almost Park, Castle Hills, and Turtle Hills, being that these have the lowest salaries, it equals to 350. If you divide that by the 3 cities, it equals to an average of 116. The city will save $76,000. Now, if our city pays this amount, we still need to add the city contribution. And I was saying, according to the numbers I saw, it was approximately 43,000 for a total of salary of 159,000. So that'd still be a savings of 77,000 from the current 236 or 200,000, 36,000 salary on the 2024 current payroll cost. Okay, now I'm going to look at the severance portion. If you look at the involuntary termination, you see in the bottom there, I'm recommending you change it to, in the event that of the city administrator's involuntary separation of the city administrator after the first 6 months this agreement, administrator shall be entitled to receive a lump sum cash payment equal to 3 months. I'm sorry, I'm recommending you change this from 6 months to 12 months. And then the lump sum cash payment equals to 3 months. I'm recommending this to change to 1 week salary. And sick leave days plus the value of any vacation leave occurred by the city administrator prior to termination. Provided, however, that in the event that the administrator is terminated because of not meeting minimum performance standards, his arrest, indicted, or conviction for a crime of moral turpitude, then in that event, the city shall have no obligation to pay the aggregate severance sum designated in this paragraph. Now let's look at the voluntary termination. All I change here, recommend to change here is the last sentence, if you see it. If given the option to voluntarily resign in lieu of termination by the council due to not meeting minimum performance standards, no service pay will be due. The severance pay in Texas is not required unless it is promised in a written policy or agreement. However, severance pay is common in private employment, agreements, and company policies. Service packages are usually open to negotiation. Employees can try to negotiate better terms, especially if they are long-serving or highly compensated. Severance agreements can include terms such as the amount and timing of payments, confidentiality, non-complete restrictions. It's important to understand all the terms of the agreement, including the time period to sign it. Let's look at the performance evaluation. I'm recommending you change it to read, it will be the responsibility of the mayor to inform the administrator that he or she will be evaluated according to the job descriptions starting day 1 of the appointment. The The council shall review and evaluate the performance of the city administrator at least once annually, utilizing the job description approved by the council. And then at the bottom, at least once every quarter, the mayor shall conduct a performance counseling and provide the results to the council. The council shall provide the administrator's performance evaluation input to the mayor based on the performance and the mayor's quarterly counseling sessions results. Let's look at the monthly vehicle allowance. City was paying $250 a month for vehicle allowance. I'm recommending to read, the administrative duties require exclusive and unrestricted use of a vehicle. The administrator shall acquire and maintain a vehicle during the terms of this agreement, which shall be available to the administrator's exclusive and unrestricted use in the performance of his or her duties hereunder. The administrator shall be responsible for paying for liability, property damage, and comprehensive insurance coverage for personal vehicle, and shall further be responsible for all expenses attendant to the purchase, operation, maintenance, repair, and regular replacement of said vehicle. The city agrees, this is what I recommend, the city agrees to reimburse the administrator for the current mileage rate allowed if he uses a personal vehicle to conduct city business if a city vehicle is not available. The administrator will keep the log on mileage for reimbursement. The cell phone, same thing as council members. If the city cannot provide one, then the city administrator shall get a $40 a month allowance. And this concludes my presentation and recommendations. Like I said, I provided a hard copy about 3 months ago.
Mr. Valverde, can you speak on your microphone, sir? Can you speak in?
I presented a hard copy of this working agreement contract to each one of you about 3 months ago. I would like to hear some of your suggestions or recommended changes that you would like to make. In my opinion, this contract is more than generous and very costly to the city. I highly recommend to make changes. I'm not against providing a severance package, but we need to be conservative due to our budget. So I think that if we check with other cities, there might be a possibility that our city provides the largest severance package. Thank you. I'd like to hear some comments from any one of you, recommendations.
Is that,
Microphone.
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Do as I say, not as I say. Is 44,000 with a personal vehicle, or is, I mean, he doesn't get a take-home vehicle? So the 44,000 is the city contribution for all of his compensation?
Yes, sir. Yes, that's correct. All previous city administrators had a vehicle allowance. We found typically it's cheaper to do that than to reimburse, because some of them we can be taking a lot of trips and go beyond $3,000 real fast. But otherwise, yes, that would be included in the compensation.
I don't know if it's proper, maybe council advise me on this, a tracker. You know, some people, it's easier for them to use because it, you touch an app and it starts tracking your mileage and it prints it out for you all nice and clean. Is that something that cities do?
Not in my experience. They typically just provide either
It's the honor
allowance.
system.
It's usually an allowance, as Floyd indicated. It's more typically handled as, if they do any vehicle allowance at all, it's usually just a flat fee. Rather than, and then mileage only for particular types of trips, which are done by law. So the way it's written now is fairly typical.
I'll, give the board I'll questions.
Councilman Valverde,
Yes,
I'm gonna recommend that each one of us take these home, write our own recommendations and improvements on it, and on the 27th, we're gonna meet again and review this.
yes, sir. Like I said, I'm just laying down the groundwork.
Right, and we can take these home and read them, make notes and changes, and on the 27th, come back and compare notes.
And like I said, this is not the actual contract. This is just a base, sample or just an idea, so that we can all agree on some certain numbers. And then the mayor can, present it to the new city administrator.
Like you said, rather than take up any of the time here discussing this, we'll take it home and review it, make adjustments, and come back on.
That's great. I don't have a problem with that. That's good.
If that's okay with other council members.
Well, I have prepared something to discuss this. So I got some input I'd like to provide and recommendations on this. Anyone else like to input first?
May I be recognized?
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. So first, I would say, Mr. Valverde, thank you for putting this together. I know it took a lot of your time. And a lot of the information will be very useful in the negotiations with the future city administrator. I do want to point out, though, that some of the numbers here are inaccurate. So any recommendations we make, any changes we make should be made with the corrected numbers. So I would volunteer to work with you, Mr. Valverde, to correct the numbers on here, and then ask the interim city administrator to send the updated packet out to city council, so they have the most up-to-date information.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, go right ahead.
That's fine, Mark, but whether they're corrected or incorrect or whatever is irrelevant as to what we decide the salary should be.
Well, right,
That's,
as
this is only a basis.
as we're looking at it, though, it looks like we're paying some $68,000 more than another area. We're paying probably $10,000 in another area. So it's a significant difference between 10,000 and 68,000, as an example. So I just want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples as we look through this and make our recommendations. That's all. It's just
Councilman Burton?
It's really hard to compare apples to apples when you've got even if it's a small city that has a much bigger revenue than us, take Leon Valley, for example, or Castle Hills, our neighbors. They've got a much bigger revenue coming into their cities. Be it, we get our revenues off of ad valorem, sales tax, fine, and they capitalize on all three of those deals. We have smaller volume, smaller business district, so it's not apples to apples, oranges to oranges at all. I agree.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
so I disagree somewhat, but we have to pay market value. So we live in San Antonio metropolitan area, there's multiple cities. So we have to pay a rate that is commensurate with the market that we are in. So we can't say that we're gonna pay somebody what Alice, Texas pays them because they have approximately the same amount of crime there. Okay, because that's a much, much smaller city and a much, much different, it's a rural area. So we have to compare the metropolitan area. That's what we have to keep in mind.
Further comments?
Mr. Overley, on the performance evaluation, just for clarification, what is it that you're asking for? At least every quarter, the mayor shall conduct a performance counseling and provide results to the council. The council should provide the administrator's performance evaluation input to the mayor based on the performance and mayor's quarterly counseling session results.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for the mayor to get together once a quarter with the city administrator to let him know his strong points and weak points, to identify the points, and that way the mayor can tell the administrator what he needs to improve in. And then he provides whatever results to us. And then we're gonna evaluate the administrator according to the evaluation form. We're gonna provide input, plus whatever results the mayor provides for us from the council sessions. And we just consolidate that, send it to the mayor, and the mayor consolidates our input with his evaluation, and then come up with the final evaluation.
I'd like to, once we come back, discuss this in more detail, because there's, I'm a little bit uncomfortable using that process. Thank you.
Well, it's just like I said, I'm just laying it out to give you guys some ideas. That's what I had asked you when I passed it on 3 months ago, to look at it, come up with ideas. But, you know, I'm okay if we come back next month with whatever ideas you all have, recommendations. I'm just, like I said, I'm just laying out the picture. These are my recommendations, and I'm not saying they're right, but whatever you guys decide.
No, and I mean, I totally appreciate all the work you put into this. You can see you put a lot of effort into it, and thank you for that.
Councilman Burton?
Floyd, hasn't it always been that the, or maybe I asked former mayor?
No.
Didn't you have quarterly meetings with weekly meetings? And then you would distribute that among council. So I don't see a problem with that. That way you don't have 5 council members plus the mayor going in there and disrupting the city manager. That's been true to everybody I've worked with. But I don't see an issue with that, so.
Right, and like I said, we'll bring it back for discussion. Thank you.
And it just appears, you know, because of your disagreement with our current mayor, that you want to disengage from that practice.
And I appreciate your concerns and your comments, but my focus is on the responsibility that I have to the city and the residents, and make sure that what we do is equal to everybody. And that's why I didn't recommend anything. That's why I'm saying I don't agree with it, and I'm open for discussion. My position and my agreements or disagreement had nothing to do with my position to go forward.
No, it's very obvious what you're trying to do, and I will leave it at that.
Yes.
And I appreciate your concern, but again, my focus is on the betterment of the city and make sure that we do everything as a unit and not going in one direction. Like I said, I disagree with it, but I'm open to discussion. I mean, I'm more than open to discussion, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Anybody else? Let me provide my recommendations and observations in the study that I've done for the city, on behalf of the city, for you as well, council. The traditional manner in which this has been conducted, this process, is exactly as stated. Mayor has always, the former mayor has always, or the mayors have always reviewed performance evaluation. I have it in front of you here, the last evaluation, which was conducted from the period of September 2023.
Mayor,
Can you speak in?
speaking, thank you.
So the last evaluation was conducted September 2023 to February 2024, and it bears the signature of the former mayor. And in it, it is the former administrator, Gilbert Perales. And she conducted the entire narrative evaluation on him, performances, constructive suggestions, comments for the manager's priority, expectation, goals, and objectives. And then the council provided their comments and the manager on priority, expectation, goals, and objectives for the new rating period. So nothing has changed in Mr. Valverde's recommendation. So just to clarify that for the public, any concerns that you may have or anyone may have pertaining to that. My recommendations for new city council, to the Balcony Heights City Council and community, for the Balcony Heights City Administrator, is that hiring a competent city administrator is essential to provide the leadership expertise and strategic direction needed to navigate complex issues like water. Without strong administrative oversight, the city risks making uniform decisions that could further compromise its financial and operational interests. Balcony Heights, Texas needs to evolve into a modern municipality. The city administrator needs to monitor the city's financial stability, measuring the financial health of small communities and such as ours like Balcony Heights requires key performance indicators. They're referred to as KPIs. That is what tracks revenue, expenditures, debt, reserves, and operational efficiency in the city. Currently, the city is operating on, is referred to as chaos management, meaning that it's referring to reactive decisions that are being made and not proactive decisions. So we're reacting in a chaotic management style right now. One, the budget and financial management. The operating budget variance percent. There's a formula for this in actual spending, budgeted spending times 100. Why? Because it tracks how closely Balcony Heights stays within its budget. So the performance evaluation should be geared towards the KPIs, and where city administration needs to be focusing on that, rather than fully on this performance evaluation. These performance evaluations are good. They give you a good measure as to how your administrator is functioning, but the KPIs give you statistical, and I know that Councilman Sines has always said he's a numbers person. This would be right down your alley, Councilman Sines, because it is based on statistical and graphical information.
Mayor, if I may, I think you're jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah, but if I say, let me finish, I have the floor.
I agree
So-
pieces.
We are, that's what we're talking about. It has to do with performance evaluation. This is irrelevant to it.
But I mean, it's already on the performance evaluation that we asked Mr. Valverde to prepare, and that is the second.
Right, but I'm making some comments. Let me finish, please. So we have budget and financial management and performance evaluation. We need to be looking at revenue indicators, property tax collection rates of a percentage, sales tax growth, intergovernmental revenue as the total revenue sources in the performance evaluation. What kind of targets are we looking at? Do we go on the threshold of 15%, 20% in those evaluations under the performance evaluation? Liquidity and solvency, current ratios, when you look at formulas and current assets in this performance evaluation. Service efficiency and productivity need to be, because that's cost per resident for essential services. Total cost of public services for the total population of the city. Why? Because it measures cost efficiency in the delivery of core delivery services. Infrastructure condition indexes need to be utilized for this evaluation. Employee turnover rate, which we've had a very high turnover rate in one of our departments, specifically the police department. We've had a tremendous high turnover. So why? We need to monitor workforce stability, which affects service delivery and administrative efficiency. Long-term sustainability, debt to assess property value ratios. Hiring a competent city administrator is essential. So we need to look at this, and I'll be including this, Mr. Valverde, for your review, and I'll send it over to you that has more detail in there, and then you can research the KPI index to see. This is what other cities use to evaluate real performance factors on their city administrator. And then we can couple that with these excellent suggestions. So that is my take and my input on how we can move in more modern fashion to get our city up to par. So if there's no other further comments, let's move on down the line to the items on the agenda.
I think Mr. Sines, because I said you recognized.
You guys, okay, go right ahead, Mr. Science, please.
So those are all very good suggestions for metrics, but a key performance indicator is exactly that. So it should be 2 to 3 key metrics that are identified that are used to drive the performance of an organization. If you have 20 metrics that you're driving for, then you don't have a key metric. You don't have a key performance indicator. If you're trying to reach all 20, it's impossible to do that. It's impossible to measure that and drive the performance of the business. So of those, which you have some very good metrics there, the city council would need to identify the top 2 or 3 metrics that they feel would drive the city to growth and the benchmarks that we're looking for as a city council. So very detailed. I like the metrics that you put there, but again, we would need to identify what the priorities are for our city council and then which metrics support those, and then those would be the key performance indicators that we would put on this goal, on this evaluation sheet that Mr. Belvedere put together.
Excellent, I'm glad that you recognize that, and that's all I'm asking for, is to make sure that the city, as mayor, to provide this type of recommendation to the council on behalf of the city, and that's what I'm doing, providing these recommendations. Take 1, 2, 3, 5, or 20 of them, but implement them so that you properly manage your city. So thank you very much.
Mayor?
Yes, very little time, so we can move on to the next time. We spent enough time on this thing.
I agree.
Go ahead.
And just going back on your key indicators, now you made reference to one department. My concern is the addressing of that department. In some areas, a key indicator might be the benefit of a turnover. So turnover is not necessarily always a negative thing.
Thank you, sir, very much. Let's move on to item number 2 now. Discussion and possible action to finalize the city administrator evaluation form with the requested changes. So we decided to go ahead and move forward for the next meeting. I think that's what we decided on now.
On the evaluation form?
Yeah.
No,
Whatever
I'm
you
just
want
gonna
to
go
do.
over some notes right quick,
Okay,
because this has already been approved.
okay. Okay, Mr. Gardner.
Yeah, I was just going over the last meeting notes.
Okay.
On the evaluation form, and there seems to be a little misunderstanding. And tonight I'm bringing this up to go over the final evaluation form with the requested changes in system which was set up and approved by the council. I suggested for items number 7, supervision and managing, for the mayor to evaluate, simply because the mayor and the city administrator are supposed to communicate more on a daily basis, or normally communicate more on the daily basis than the council members and the city administrator. Mr. Sines requested the council to be included in evaluating these 2 items. And that means these items' input will be provided to the mayor, along with the rest of them. Mr. Sines also asked who was supposed to set the goals, the council or the administrator. For this evaluation purpose, the council sets the goals for the administrator and will specify on the evaluation if the goals were achieved. Mr. Sines requested SMART, which is sustainable, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals, which the council had been utilizing for many years. They would just never identify the SMART goals. At his request, I added the word SMART to the goals section on the evaluation report, and I also included what SMART stands for, and you'll see it at the bottom of the forms. Mr. Sellers made a motion to accept the recommended evaluation form. Mr. Burton made an amendment to the motion to change the language to what Mr. Sines had suggested. Unless I'm missing something, there was not a change of language. The only requested changes I see is that council must provide input on the evaluation of the supervision and management sections to utilize the SMART goals, which I said earlier, and they have been utilized in the past. The way the evaluation process has been set up is the mayor is a primary evaluator of the city administrator with the input from the council. The mayor will consolidate the council's input along with his evaluation to complete the process. prior to the mayor presenting the final performance evaluation to the city administrator, the mayor will present it to the council with the input provided. If the council agrees, approves, then the mayor will present the performance evaluation to the city administrator. And that's the process that's been in place. And that's all I have. Thank you.
That clarifies it very well. Thank you. So we'll move on now to, 3. Discussion and opening that we have, make sure we don't pass anybody up. Item number 2, we had, Suzanne De Leon, 323 Crestview, item number 2. You don't want to address it? Okay.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
That's correct.
I just have a brief question. So, for the attorney, so this is a possible action item to finalize it. So in the previous meeting, we had requested that Mr. Valverde update it with the suggested language for review this period. So do we need to have a motion to approve this document, or is it already approved based on the previous meeting?
It would be appropriate to have a motion to approve the evaluation form as revised per Mr. Valverde's comments tonight. So if you want to make that motion, then.
Thank you. So I would move to make a motion to
Okay,
approve.
hold on, excuse me. Mr. Sines, if I may just get some clarification, Counselor? What was the question and what was the response?
His question was whether or not a motion would be appropriate to formalize the clarifications that Mr. Valverde described in his comments at the beginning of this item. And I responded that yes, it would be appropriate if the council wants to incorporate those changes into the approved evaluation form, then a motion to approve the evaluation forms as revised would be appropriate. And so it would be up to the council to decide whether they want to take that action.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Sines.
Thank you. So I'll move to make a motion to approve the city administrator evaluation form as presented today by Mr. Valverde.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I'd like to amend, or maybe I don't need to amend, using the acronym SMART goals in the evaluation, or is that what you're including?
Well, it's all the changes that are already, this is the updated evaluation form.
So
That Mr. Valverde went and took the changes that we as a council asked him to put in last month.
I'm just making sure it's in the language that we're using. I'm amending it to make sure we're using the acronym SMART. That's the change.
Yeah, what's in here is what I'm
If I may-
suggesting we would.
I may just clarify. What his motion is basically to adopt number 2 as written.
It's written here, or?
Yes, it's written on the agenda,
I will say.
and it's written in what was provided.
Excuse me, they're highlighted in your form.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we have a second, Councilman Burton. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, let's take a quick roll call vote. Councilman Valverde.
Yay.
Councilman Sines.
Yeah.
Councilman Lysia. Councilman Sellers. Okay, Councilman Sellers is sustained. Councilman Burton. Okay, so we have 4-1. One sustained. Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 4. Discussion regarding potential ballot initiative repeal. Yes. I'm sorry, what? Oh, the lease agreement. Right.
Yeah.
3, discussion and possible action to review the lease agreement for Woda Space A47. We had 4. Lease agreement for Woda Space A47. Okay, so we have, you want to allow the citizens to come speak first, or does the author of this item wish to?
But we can vote for citizens to.
Okay, so I'll agree to go ahead and do that. We have Ms. Suzanne De Leon, item number 4, was coming up, so she's not on 3, but we have Lamar Gillian, number 3. Lamar Gillian, 3.4, Glen.
Thank you, council.
Hold on, it's Lamar Gillian.
Speaker first.
Yes, ma'am, you were on 3, you had 2 and 4.
I'm sorry, number 3. It's not.
Yeah, 2 and 4.
Request for number 4. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So Lamar Gillian, is he here?
Withdraw my comments until I hear from my council
Okay?
So,
So,
so I wanted to review the recent.
we have somebody else. Former Councilman Charles Danaway.
Greetings, council, greetings, mayor. So I have a space at the Wonderland of the Americas. It's a great idea. Primarily if you have developers or if you're going to have a investor. I remember years ago when I was on council, it's pretty difficult for bring an investor into a police department. The other thing I understand about the property up there, 47A, whatever it is that it's supposed to be an in-kind. In-kind is no charge. You have to make it ready, so there's some expense. But generally speaking, that's a gift. If you want the city to progress and you want to bring investors in, you don't bring them into a police department. That's not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have, thank you, Mr. White. Now we have Mr. Jimmy Hernandez, 112 Leisure.
I'd like to defer to after I hear the council.
Okay. Here we have, that's it right there. So Mr. White and Mr. Giddings. So Mr. Councilman Sines, go right ahead so that your constituents, as Mr. Giddings said, my Councilman Sines, have to leave.
Thank
Go
you.
right ahead.
Thank you. So the reason this is on the agenda today is because this is something that Councilman Lasea has tried to bring up for review in the past, specifically in November. He requested this to be on the council agenda, and it was removed by the mayor. Excuse me. And at the time, Mr. Lasea was requesting the cost to the city for moving the infrastructure to 847, which is a space within the Wonderland of Americas. If there was any cost associated with the furniture or internet services or anything else, how much would the city be paying for this and for the space? Who was negotiating it? We weren't given any information. So at the time in November, Mr. Lasea placed it on the agenda within the confines of the restrictions that we have for placing an agenda item on the for the city council to review. Again, the mayor removed it and did not give a reason why. So again, came up again in December when the mayor finally did allow it to be on the agenda for us to review, and he called it an in-kind agreement, which, as Mr. White has said, he views as a gift. An in-kind is not a gift. It's something that you will pay for later. Fortunately, we were provided with a copy of the lease, and I'll read the letter. Can I read the letter?
Just go right ahead and finish up what you're doing. As far as, that letter's gonna be of no use because you can explain what you're explaining right now. And so go right ahead and just explain your situation. How long is the letter?
That page.
Oh, wait, no?
That page.
Okay, go ahead.
It says, "Dear Mayor, please let this letter clarify the partnership's position regarding lease spaces 822 and 847 at WODA. Pursuant to the partnership agreement, lease space for B61 has been leased.
Sometimes if I may interrupt, can you please put the date on that when that letter was sent?
August 27, 2024.
Thank you.
Lease space for A22 was leased to the EDC for the city's Economic Development Office, and the rent by agreement is being offset from the accrued quarterly distributions not being made to the EDC/city. The city subleased with the partnership knowledge a portion of A22 to the senator. Your preference is to not office and lease space A22, but sublease the entire space to the senator, thus creating cash flow to the EDC/city, which normally would be the partnership's right. However, since the city has a budget shortfall, and in the spirit of being a good partner, this partnership will not object to the EDC/city becoming a sublessor of lease space A22 to the senator. Please note that it was never the intention of the partnership for the EDC/city to be a sublessor of space at Woodard with the exception of B61 lease space. With regard to the lease space of A47, the space you would like to occupy for your offices, the partnership will be flexible and agree that city will occupy the lease space A47 and the rent for A47 will also be deducted from the quarterly distribution amount being accrued and not currently being distributed to the EDC/city. The partnership will deliver space A47 in the as-is condition, and any leasehold improvements will be at the city's cost. If you concur with these understandings, then the partnership confirms that you should proceed to execute the sublease of space A22 to the senator, and the partnership will deliver to you a lease for A47 and will offset the rent in the same manner as A22. Please contact me with any comments and if I need to verify anything in this memo. Regards. So, again, the issue is that it's an in-kind lease, and we were not provided with the amount of that. So you kept on saying it was free during the last meeting. It was free. It was not costing the city anything. Fortunately, this lease does show us how much is actually going to cost the city in in-kind contributions. So the annual square foot rent is $17 per square foot, for a total of a little over $2,900 per month, which comes out to a little over $34,000 a year annually that the city will not see in revenue distributions from the EDC. I don't think that is a wise expenditure for our city, considering it is not available for city council use, even though you say it is. It's only used as a part-time office when you use it or when you have a meeting with an investor or somebody else that you invite there. So, in the last meeting, you did say that it was open to any city council member. We could all use it, but we don't have a need for that space. So we're paying $35,000 a year, essentially, for an office space for you to use sometimes, when we could not have this expense and go and gain the full amount that we should be getting from our EDC disbursements when the mall finally does start making these disbursements. So if the mayor does need an office, you know, we have space here that Mayor De Leon used for 16 years. So all you have to do is get your fingerprint and you have access to that office. If you continue to refuse to get your fingerprints and have access to that office, I'm sure we can find much less expensive alternatives to $35,000 a year.
Finish?
Yes, I'll open the floor to Mr. Gillian or Mr. Hernandez if you have.
No, I'm the one that runs the meeting, so I will open the floor. If I'm asking you to finish.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Sines, in all the statements that you have made for Mr. Burke, go ahead, Mr. Burke. Go right ahead.
I'd like to give kind of a timeline on this, because it was kind of a all-at-once type of thing. From what I understand, I was not in any meetings or anything of that nature. But when Mr. Nastasi left the city, Ms. Vince had her office over there, and at that point, Mayor Rodriguez said, yeah, let's just move Mary over, Ms. Vince over to City Hall. And if this office space was offered by, not solicited by him, but by Mr. Peralta, and we needed a place where we were gonna put the fish tank, where we were gonna put the conference table. And so this was an offering from the city administrator. And it was minimal put into it, just moving the furniture and the fish tank. And the, he needed secure internet because of doing city business over there. They didn't want him using a hotspot to get into the city, the mail. So they agreed to put internet over there. I don't know at what point, but they did. So the intention after that, brainstorming and stuff, when we had the meeting that you were included on, and Mr. Lissay and Mr. Sellers, the intention of that space was not to be the mayor's office, but it was to be a place to meet, a place to engage with not only Balcones Heights citizens, but to engage with Bear County citizens, because the county had an interest in putting a kiosk in there. And we wanted to bring Mary Spence's position, if she was staying with the city or leaving the city, to be over there full time, because you can't just have a kiosk sitting there and not being used. You have to have a place for that person, which when we do hire for the position of Ms. Spence, where are you gonna put her? That's the mayor's office, according to you now.
If the mayor's not using it,
Well,
he's asking a question.
You don't need to respond to
So
your recommendation.
the intention was that to be up there near in the public, where anybody that goes by, come in, have a conversation with the mayor, have a conversation with the community development there, and it was minimal expense, according to what Gilbert had told us. I don't see why you're so concerned about, I understand the concern of the money, but Sid hasn't paid us 1 red cent on that $5.4 million. And we're probably, realistically, not gonna see 1 red cent until we sell it. So, I don't understand what the big deal is. Again, I'm pointing this to, and I alluded to it earlier, you two want to do anything you can to be a thorn in the side of the new mayor. And it's obvious, it appears that way to me. And it's obvious to me. So, you know, you're gonna spend a lot of money because you're not moving it, the furniture and fish tank, just out of that building. You're moving it to another place. So whatever you want to do, if you think we can rent that property out, because there's many properties still sitting vacant up there, to include the old Addison Linen and a few other properties, move it out. It's no sweat off my back. But I'm just saying it's a good place to have engagement with the citizens that, you know, can't get up here due to parking constraints. And I just hope that you reconsider what you're asking and do the right thing.
Mayor,
I know.
What?
You know, go ahead.
I really wasn't gonna say anything, but you just quoted, 20 minutes ago, that you think we should pay the city administrator market value for a city of 3,000 people, but you're driving about $30,000 a year for an office. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It really doesn't. We can't afford a city administrator market value with a city of 3,000 people. That's what I have to say.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
so Jack, I don't think $13,000 is a minimal expense. That's how much it costs to move into that office space. And I assure you this building is a lot more accessible than the mall is right now. The mall does not have good accessibility, right? So So it does not. I mean, that's one of the key complaints about it. I've received complaints about it from people that need accessible doors and elevators, escalators, etc. So it's not very accessible to the public. So again, this building has served our mayor since its inception without any issues. I don't see why we need to have a space in the Wonderland that is going to cost the city $35,000 a year in lost revenue. So when the mall does pay out, we're losing out on that revenue. And the mayor likes to say that Sid is a shrewd businessman. I can see him in the future saying, hey, we finally have a dividend for you or disbursement for you. It's $100,000. By the way, it was $105,000 for the past 3 years. And so you don't get any money and you still owe us $5,000. So that is my concern. It's not necessary. We performed well as a city without it. And it's going to cost us money in the long run.
Yield the floor. Anyone else?
Yes, I have a couple comments I'd like to make. I do have a concern with this lease space. I don't recall having any kind of meetings or any kind of information on this stuff. And it was said that it wasn't gonna cost the city any money, but it is because our generous partnership modified the rent from $2,600 to $2,900 for the lease space. And if this contract is approved, this rent-free space turned into a $55,142 because it's not a 12-year contract, it's a 12-month, it's a 19-month contract. And another thing, this contract was supposed to commence on the 1st of October, and it's supposed to end on 31 May 26. And, but like I said, I do not recall anybody bringing this contract or saying anything about it is gonna start on 1 October 2024. Now, I heard that there was like $10,000, something to that effect on internet and phone lines. So the question that I have is, if this contract is not approved, I shouldn't even ask because I know the answer, but the partnership is not gonna reimburse the city for that money. So I was just disappointed to the way this whole issue was done. And if it was the city administrator's deal, well, he's not here to defend himself, but this is totally wrong. Because I feel that as a council, we should have all been informed and we should all known exactly what's gonna happen, and we didn't. So, it's all wrong from the get-go. That's all I got.
Great. Sam?
Yeah. And fellow councilmen, this is why I insisted on bringing this issue to the table. It's plain that it's something that we don't need. We don't need that space. It's a nice to have, we don't have it. Now, there is provisions in the contract that calls for other spaces within the mall that are part of the agreement, that I do know for a fact. But A47 is not part of the agreement. So we can look at other options. Again, I don't think we need the space. I think it's unfortunate that we're at this point having to discuss this. My biggest concern is the Texas Procurement Code, the local government code. How many laws were broken by us moving into a space without an agreement, being a government entity? That is my biggest concern, that we are violating laws and pretending that it's okay because we know who we're dealing with. It's not. That's why I was very adamant about getting this agenda item on for discussion. It's not that I disagree with anything, I just, as myself, I am not willing to put myself in jeopardy to become incarcerated or be breaking any laws because we overlook something. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Councilman
Well, that was your 160,000 plus benefits city administrator.
No, ma'am, we had Mr. Gideon who wants to speak, but he signed up, he didn't sign up, so. Go ahead, Mr. Gideon. Go ahead. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. You didn't sign up, so.
I agree with Councilman Valverde. I think this thing has been mismanaged. And there are a couple of concerns I have. The first concern I have, or question, really is back to Mr. Messick, who handles the financing for the financial aspect of the city. Mr. Messick, do we have an outstanding bill on this contract right now? Has it been paid already? Has the contract been paid? It's a monthly charge, right? It's not a signed contract. See, I have a big problem with that because you have a,
Go ahead and speak.
you have a situation where the city has incurred an obligation, and I don't think the city has the contracting authority based on the current code of ordinances that's on the website. I read it today. The city administrator has the contract authority up to $25,000. Someone told me the other day it was 50, but what's on the website now is 25,000. I don't know of any other person that has a right to establish a contract other than the city administrator for up to 25. Beyond 25,000, when I was on the council, beyond 25,000, it took the approval of the city council to approve a contract. That has not been done. So we're sitting on a contract right now that, number one, has exceeded the contracting authority of the city administrator, who did not sign it because it was, and if he did, it would have been illegal because it was more than 25,000. So one said 19 months is going to be 54,000. Whether it's 54 or 12 months, it still exceeds the amount. And Mayor, I don't understand why you cannot lower yourself and take that corner office like the previous two mayors did for almost 20 years. The last person to sit in that office upstairs was you. Mayor Craven came in and he said, I don't need that bigger space. I can always go up there if we have meetings with the city administrator and myself, and we can use the bigger space. But the city administrator does a major work in the city. He needs a bigger space. So would you explain to me and the other citizens why you feel that's an inadequate space?
Absolutely.
Let me hear from you.
And I am so glad that you brought up all these points, and my colleagues have brought up some very valid points about the city administrator, who has authority, who doesn't have authority. Do you know how this occurred? Do you know the story? Or did you
Tell me.
get with your councilman?
No.
He told you the story.
I didn't talk to my councilman, sir. Tell me.
And it's the same way in which the incompetence of the handling of the water occurred under your guard, okay? And you admitted it in the council meeting that water was your responsibility. And the reason we are in the financial problems that we are is because you caused it. All right, so that's number one. Now let's address number two. For the benefit of the community, I had nothing to do with the occupation of this office. And I want Mrs. Spence to stand up and speak in a minute because she was a part of this. Now, I am now coming to understand with my investigative skills that I'm trained at, that I was set up on this. And I'm going to tell you how it was set up. What happened was I had not been using this office over here when I came into office in May. Specifically because I felt it was too small for me. It was not adequate for the kind of meetings I was gonna be having. But I had meetings up to 17 people at one time, because for no pay whatsoever, I'm working diligently to get this reverse mistake that you caused, and the other council members are on the board at the time, to reverse the financial problems that we are in right now. And I'm working hard, sir. I'm meeting with investors, I'm meeting with Mr. Weiss, I'm doing lots of things. I'm trying to bring in people from other countries, meeting them from Spain, to see if they would be interested in investing in our community. While I was doing that, Mr. Perales said, I noticed you haven't been using your office. Do you not want to use it? I said, no, sir, I really don't want to use it. Thank you anyway. And he said, okay. So then we get into the Jazz Fest very shortly after I was elected. I'm in the meeting of the Jazz Fest. We're in that reception area. I had gotten a letter on that date from the senator with a request and an interest in taking over the entire senator's office, which, let me clarify for you, that we did not have the authority from the very beginning to sublease that office to a political ally in the Democratic Party. We didn't offer it to a Republican candidate, just a Democratic senator. Now, a special deal was made where that person was paying $2 a square foot when that office space leases between $17 and $19 a square foot. When Mr. Nastasi disoccupied that office, Mr. Perales approached me and said, Mayor, why don't you start using that office over with Mr. Nastasi's at? It's going to be available soon. You can take that office. Before I knew it, Mary Spence was preparing that office already for me, and several times she called me and emailed me and asked me, when are you going to come in? Your office is ready. When are you going to come over? I was very reluctant to take that office because I felt a little bit like I was going to get set up in that office for some reason. And I didn't know the details of everything that was going on. At that point, Mr. Perales said, utilize it. I started having meetings a little bit after that, a couple of 2 or 3 weeks, because I had some important meetings with these investors that I'm currently dealing right now with to bring a big project over to WODA to possibly purchase it for a live, work, and play proposition. And that's undergoing right now. So that was the reason. And I'm meeting with people over there to have meetings because I have nowhere to meet in a suitable area. So I'm meeting over Mr. Nastasi's. Shortly after that, that's when the senator asked to lease the entire space. I said to myself, that is an additional $3,100 or $3,200 that the city can make. Let me vacate that office right away. And I told the senator, you're more than welcome to use that office. Make the deal happen. You deal with Mr. Perales on it. Everything went through Mr. Perales. Everything. When Mr. Perales said, don't worry, sir, we'll find you an office. We've got spaces over at WODA. I didn't ask for the details. I didn't ask for anything. He just told me, don't worry. I will set it up with Ms. Bush and Mrs. Spence, and you meet them out there, and you go pick. They're going to show you the spaces that are available, and just pick one of those spaces. I said, thank you, sir. We'll see how it goes. I was there on the grand opening to open a business up for this mall. Went over there after I finished. Mrs. Spence, I asked her, you know what? Let's go take a look at some of those offices in Mr. Perales. She went and showed it to me. There were 3. I chose the one that I thought was more reasonable because of the fact that the traffic, more accessible to the public, and I was already thinking this was not going to be a mayor's office. This is going to be an annex office for the city of Balcones Heights to be able to offer services, have accessibility to people, but not only to our city, but to the county. So as Mrs. Spence was preparing my office, moving furniture, she kept sending me emails asking me, what do I want to do with the furniture? How do I want to position it? How do I want to structure that office? I said, it's totally up to you, and leave it under your purview. However you want to do it is fine. Next thing comes the aquarium. Mayor, the aquarium is going to be moved. Do you want it to be, where do you want it, so-and-so? It's going to cost $100 for the upkeep, so-and-so. They're asking me now, while Mr. Perales is the one that initiated this. This is where the responsibility lies with Mr. Perales. I don't have any inner city knowledge of what the details of the contract were. I was told it was a free space for us, just like it was over at the senator's office, but it was not. It's almost the same size in square footage and almost the same cost. Okay? So the pass-through is this. It's not free, as Mr. Sines seems to claim in his newsletter the last time when he was talking about getting rid of dispatch, where he says, I promise to be transparent, tell you the truth all the time. He's not telling you the truth. He's trying to lay this on my feet to show that I'm incompetent or that I'm the one that made this deal. I didn't make this deal, Mr. Sines. Mr. Perales, your city administrator, that I complained to you about. And I told you of his incompetence when I came into this office, and I gave you a list of the incompetencies that he had, and he did. You didn't do anything about it. You allowed him to remain in that position when I laid out all the incompetence. All right? So then, Mr. Gillian, right after that, the deal with the aquarium comes in. I said, whatever you want to do. The next thing was the moving of the internet. Mr. Rodriguez, Mayor Rodriguez, the internet's going to run $6,000, Mr. Lott. And I said, that's way too much. That's crazy. To move it over from the senator's office over here, that's way too much. Forget it. Don't do it. No, we have to have it, sir. Plus, I intend, his words, I intend to hire another employee, and we're going to move that employee over because you have expressed, Mrs. Spitz, that you don't want that to be a mayor's office. You want it to be an annex for the city to have access. If the police chief, the fire chief, the city administrator, the city attorney, anybody in the city wants to use that, the citizens want to use it. We have a conference table there, a wide open space, a kitchen. You having a senior citizens dinner there for the senior citizens to come over and do potluck. Let them come over. Used for the city, which originally you were on that committee that said you wanted to move city offices over to the WODA. That was your original intent. Okay? So I wasn't the one that suggested these things. I wasn't the one that came up with these ideas. They were presented to me, and I accepted them. I assumed the city administrator being under his purview, his responsibility, as you pointed out, as the authority, did not follow protocol. Purposely or inadvertently, I don't know. If it's inadvertently, it's his incompetence. If it's inadvertently done, purposely, then he did it to set me up. So that this could happen.
May I respond?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the update on the detail. However, I believe, and please don't interrupt me, I believe that the old saying, the buck stops here, stops with you. You should know what the code of ordinance says about the contracting authority in this city of being $25,000 for the city administrator. Second point I want to make is, why did you deny Councilman Lasaya's input in November? If this had come out in November, we would have had an open discussion just like you had, and people would have been better informed. And the issue of the contracting amount would have come up and saved us the possibility of legal problems later on when we, sitting on a contract, has not been signed yet and we're receiving bills. So it rests with you, Mr. Mayor, nobody else. You need to know what the city's allowed to do. You dropped the ball. Thank you.
Let me answer now your questions about the council members. Why did I remove it from the council? Because there were too many items on the agenda. Plus, I felt it was going to be this, a political ball to be kicked around. And I was not going to waste time on something like that when Mr. Perales is the responsible party for this, and he was the one that should have been consulted. Now, let me ask you this. If you lay that responsibility as the mayor's, former Councilman Gillian, then let me ask you this. Project that same question to these council members. Why did they wait so long to ask what they're asking today? They knew about it way back then. Don't tell me you didn't know about it, because they tell you guys everything that I'm doing in the city. Wait a minute, let me finish. So you guys knew about it. You're going to say you didn't, you're lying. You're outright lying. Because you knew about it. And if you didn't, then you are also acting your responsibility for not checking with your city administrator, because you knew I was over there. Don't tell me you weren't. You guys know of everything I do here, because you got your little people in every little place reporting back to you with everything that I do. And I have evidence of that, okay? In the emails exchange, the communications, all right? So don't tell me that's not the truth. So the responsibility also lies with you. But I am a victim, and I'm also a person that's been used in this particular situation, and it was set up perfectly.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
thank you. So when we found out about it, we asked for it to be put on the next
And we
city
got
council
that
agenda.
again.
You know, Mr. Losea submitted a request for it to be put on the next available city council agenda, which was in November. You removed it because you didn't want to discuss it. And then when we finally did discuss it in December, I assume it was because you thought that this agreement, this lease agreement would be signed by the time we had that.
No,
Because this,
Go, let me let you finish.
this was, yeah, please don't interrupt. You tried to put it off as long as you could until you couldn't delay the discussion anymore. And at that time, I think you were hoping that this lease would be signed because it was late in being delivered to the city. We did not get it until after the December meeting. So at that point, once we received it and I read it, I realized that this is not a good deal for the city and we need to stop it. And that's why I asked then interim city administrator Lara to put it on the agenda so the city council could discuss it and take possible action. So as soon as we were aware, we started requesting information. We tried to get it on the agenda. You
Okay.
blocked it because you didn't want to discuss it.
That's your assumption, and that's not true assumption. And I don't want to get
You're
involved.
making
I
assumptions
came
of me.
prepared.
You're making assumptions of me.
Listen. I came prepared. I have the key right here. I could care less about that office. You know, it was offered to me. I was able to occupy it because of the way they offered it to me. Okay? But the fact is, I have the key here ready. I've already emptied out that office. That office is empty. You know, I know what you're doing this for, both of you. I know all of you. You've been doing this, not all of you, excuse me.
May I
You've
reply?
been doing this for some time.
May I reply?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So I wanted to address one of Mr. Burton's accusations. He says that I'm doing this to be a thorn in your side because I disagree with you. No, I wouldn't want any person to have this. So if Mayor De Leon had tried to do this, I would be in the way of blocking that as well because I don't think it's a good space for our city.
Okay, so anyway, I don't know, I already told you, I've got the key right here, I'm prepared to give it to you. You don't want me to have an office, you don't want the city to have an annex office there, fine. That's no biggie. The whole thing that I'm finding is, you're trying to make me look up, I'm the person responsible. You've got your cronies here that are coming up, it's like in the past, they come up, they falsely accuse me of things, and this is not right. So, it doesn't matter. I've got the key right here, here.
So
Here's the
call
key right here, you
call
can have
concerns,
it.
kids, citizens,
Now, let me
cronies.
just tell you, let me finish telling you. So, it is no different than what you were doing when you had the economic development office there. What you're paying over there, what you were paying, was offset by the senator's lease, okay? Now, you're getting a full lease for that office, which means you still, if you take half of that, what you were getting from the senator, which you're now getting a full payment from, you would deduct that from that water lease. I never said it was free. What I said was, Mr. Wise is allowing us to utilize it.
You said it wasn't
All right,
costing
now
the city
listen.
anything.
Not at this moment. It comes to you
That's
later.
not what you said.
When, okay, so regardless, I may have been mistaken, but nevertheless, I have found out now the way it works. And the way it works is no different than what you had over there in the EDC. So, say what you want to the people, lie as much as you want. They can see what happened. I just explained how it happened. And you're just wanting to use this as political rhetoric because you want to run for mayor. You're looking to be mayor, which is fine, okay? But don't waste the time of the people with this, all right? And you have cost the people money, but it wasn't my fault. It was Gilbert Morales' fault. And I'd like to hear some input from you. Provide some input on how that occurred. What do you know, sir? No, I'm speaking first. I asked her. She went too long.
And that's very,
Patricia Summers, she will gladly provide.
I'm sorry, I can ask her, I'm the mayor, and I'm asking her to provide input.
Mayor, you don't-
Mayor, Mayor, may I be recognized?
Okay, so let's just finish up because this is getting to be silly. And, it's just, I just gave the key to Mrs. Burnham. She has it, you got your offer. So let's move on. Let's move on. Let's get on down the agenda. And what do you want to do with it? We'll have more input on it. What do you want to do with it? Yes, go ahead, Mr. And I'm just go right ahead, sir.
Mayor, City Council, Jimmy Hernandez, 112 Major. You know, this reminds me of somebody in a car going straight for a cliff. And one person's got the hand on the wheel and they're pulling left. And the other person has the hand on the other side of the wheel pulling right. And neither one wants to relent. And it's just gonna go to destruction. You guys, y'all need to come together and start working. I mean, I'm just really disappointed. And I'm really disappointed in pretty much everybody except Mr. Valverde here. I mean, the bickering and the attacks, we're not gonna get anything done. I'll address the agenda real quick. So mine's a different take. I come from the business sector. I have a question for Mr. Messick. How much does Sid Weiss pay for his space?
There's a 45.7% split of the partnership. So what happened was the $5 million that was invested into the mall was supposed to have 150,000 X amount of dollars returned monthly in dividends to their investment. That never transpired. Okay?
I understand that, but how much does he pay for his office space?
He doesn't pay anything because of the
That's
fact,
my point.
the fact that
What's our percentage of ownership, 46?
45.7.
Okay, so 45%, he's a 55% owner. Why do we have to pay anything if he doesn't?
Because of the partnership agreement, the way it was formed. Because the city did not do their homework properly when they went into that agreement.
Well, couldn't Mr. Messick go in and renegotiate this agreement? I mean, I think we should have it free.
Yeah, and what he has done, in the first time that the city approached him, they were supposed to be the only occupant of that office where the EDC was. But because of Suzanne de Leon's connection to the Democratic Party and through Senator Menendez, she offered him that space to come in to offset costs for the rent of that particular rent, of that space. Okay? Well, let's just say the council, the city officer. Okay, either way, doesn't make a difference. That's right. And but you didn't offer to a Republican candidate, did you? Well, there you go. So let me finish with him, please. Let me finish with him, please, ma'am. You're out of order. Please sit down. Okay. So basically, what happened is that, sir. And so what ended up happening is the city illegally, really, out of the contract obligation that they signed, they rented to Senator Menendez for half to offset some of their costs. Now Mr. Menendez is in with us at the rate of $3,000 per month or X amount of thousands of dollars, offset the cost of the city. That went on for many years. I came before the city council when I was just a regular citizen as a former mayor, and I said it's wrong. One, because you shouldn't be involved with senator officing like that. Senator's office has sovereign territory. City has its own territory. It's wrong. We shouldn't be doing that. Let him rent his own space. They didn't. They continued doing it. Now, when the opportunity came up that it was unoccupied by the EDC, when he retired, Mr. Smith became available. They offered to take it completely, because he wanted complete control. I offered it to the city to get more revenue. The fighting that you've seen, the inner fighting, I'm not initiating it, sir. If you can see, I'm the recipient.
Well, I think you have your part of it too.
Well, because I have to defend myself, and I think you would too, sir. If you were sitting here.
I'm not going to disagree that you're in a very difficult situation.
I am.
I'll say this, you know, Dwight D. Eisenhower said, the definition of a leader is getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it.
But do you understand that you have a council that from day one, they didn't want you. They did not endorse you, they endorsed the other candidate. And then you still have that candidate here sitting here creating chaos within the city.
I totally understand your position, but you guys gotta work it out. But to go back to this agenda, is it too late? Are we not able to renegotiate?
No, we're not.
We're not.
Follow the contract. And we are on the lesser end of it.
So if the city votes, let's say to approve it, then we move forward with it. If the city votes against it, then what happens?
They have to go and remove all of that furniture out. Take everything, paid probably between October and present date, and then all the costs associated for the moving of the internet, all that stuff is gonna be absorbed by the city. Okay, so it's a lot, basically. Now, again, Mr. Barala should have known that. He knew from the beginning how he was operating on this. He's the one that offered it to me. He didn't tell me any of these details at all. And I trusted him that upon his judgment as our city administrator, vested with those powers and duties, that he should have been on top of that. That's not something that I should have been looking at. He needed to do that, bring it to my attention. These guys should have done their homework when they knew. They're gonna tell you they just found out. It's not true. It's impossible. I've been in that office since like they said, October, November, something in that area, in and out. They know everything. You know?
Well, if the city council votes against it, then what would prevent us from then re-engaging into a new lease agreement for free? I mean, why wouldn't Sid Weiss want to give us something for free? We're his business partner.
Right, because of the fact of the contract. The contract requires him to lease the space to us. Now, here's the key. Here's the key. The key is that the space rent is not due upon now. It is upon the sale of the property or upon buying it out, somebody buying it out. Then the distribution of those funds takes place, and then that's when it kicks in. So right now, the city on a monthly basis, just like they weren't for the same amount of value that we have in this office, they were not making payments.
And do we have our part of the ownership for sale?
Well, that's what we're in right now. The city, and I have initiated the city, which they haven't done all these years, is to find out what the value of that asset is. So that we can take in turn to make decisions, competent decisions, to stay in that deal or sell our interest out. And what is the value of that asset? Until we find out, and again, the city's under crisis management, which is chaos management, and we cannot even get that done. We can't even get it before the council makes a decision to get those appraisers hired. Because there's always can down the road.
Mayor, can I read?
Go ahead, Councilman Paseo.
Mr. Hernandez, one of your questions on free spacing. Part of the agreement with Wonderland of the Americas, there is a space dedicated to the city within the Wonderland of the Americas. I believe it's space A61 that is part of the agreement. That is part of the agreement, and we can use that space, not any other space that we get to choose. And in relation to some of the comments that the mayor has made, I do recall Mr. Perales telling us at one time that he had offered the mayor a space, and the mayor had said that was not the space he wanted to. And if I recollect correctly, Mr. Perales told Mayor Rodriguez to go speak to Sid Weiss. That's how this other space came about. That is my understanding. I did a little bit of homework prior to finding out what was happening, who was moving, when it was moving. That is what happened. And also in comments made about the date of when that was happening, I think that the mayor is off on some of his dates as to when the space was offered and made available.
Yeah. You know, the mayor already turned in his keys, so really y'all are just bickering at this point.
Yeah.
Y'all should just take a vote.
Yep.
Where's Mary's place gonna go if you move over to the office?
answer that?
Well, you just ask in general, say one question, what else?
It has,
What else,
it has.
what else you got? Okay, what
Mayor.
respond to you? Okay, Councilman Simon, go ahead.
Thank you. Mayor Spence is sitting in this office right now because the mayor does not want to use it.
No,
So,
the mayor allowed her because I told her she could have it. So that I gave up my office over here. Knowing that I'm probably not gonna get an office until the other one was later offered to me. And that's when I said, Mayor, just take my office. Let her take the office that I have for the office of mayor. That's why I want Mayor to speak.
Two, is this, I don't know who can answer me on this second question. Now that we don't occupy the senator's office, who gets the money for the senator's office?
Mr. Burton, the city's general fund collects that.
I figured that
About 60,000.
I was understanding that it didn't want that money.
Yeah.
No, sir, not.
Yeah,
He just read it in his letter, he has given it up to us. And typically, yeah, that would go to him, but he's allowed it to stay with us. You know, this part of his partner.
Show that to us in writing, because he wrote an email saying, which I have, that he's entitled to that legally, that full amount, $6,000, $5,000. And he's graciously let us have it in exchange for the fact knowing that we've had no discretion.
So then, three, we voted last meeting to give him an office at a lower market value. We picked the middle one, which I was the one. Yes, we did. We picked the middle one because it wasn't the bottom one, it wasn't the most expensive one. So we're giving it to him at below market value now. And that's not our money anymore. If he's made it known that he wants his money.
may I be recognized?
Yes. Motion, Mr. Gideon, what exactly is that?
You're just talking about my phone still on, even though Mr. Burke's spoke. So may I be recognized, please?
Yes, sir.
So thank you.
And then at this, we're gonna finish.
So we do
Call
have,
for a vote, it's silly, let's move on.
may I continue and not be interrupted, please? So we do have a letter from, Mr. Weiss saying that they will allow the city to collect the lease payments for the sublease for A22. So it says, however, since the city has a budget shortfall and in the spirit of being a good partner, the partnership will not object to the EDC/city becoming a sublessor of lease phase A22 to the senator.
And isn't that what I said?
Well, now you're saying that Sid wants that money, but.
No, I said he originally wanted it, he was entitled to it, but he
You're
allowed.
saying he wanted it.
No.
Just now, Mr. Burton was saying he wanted it. Now there's an email now saying.
All right, so are we done
So-
with this?
I will make a motion to direct the city administrator to not sign the lease agreement for World Space 847.
What are you gonna do with the rest of the money that's been put in? What are you gonna do with the internet? What are you gonna do with all the furniture? You're gonna need authorization to have all that put somewhere, in storage somewhere, because there's no space.
This storage costs $35,000 a year.
No, I'm not saying with it cost $35,000. What I'm saying is, where are you gonna put it? What are you gonna do with it? Is there any language in your motion for that?
We'll direct the city administrator
There you
to
go,
identify.
get it down the road. We'll direct the city administrator. You don't have a city administrator, okay? You don't have a city administrator, all right? Now, you need to quit operating in this incompetent manner, Mr. Science, and start functioning on a competent manner, all right? This little game that y'all are playing, and you've been playing since May, it's getting boring and it's getting tiring, all right? We know why you're doing this. This is no different, like I said, from the EDC, and I'm not fighting for the office. I'm fighting for the principle of this, of what you're doing. And that is why I am speaking so vocally about this, so that people can see the truth of what's going on. I couldn't care less whether that office is there or not. It's detriment to the city of what y'all are doing. That's all it is. So with that, let's move on. You've got a motion on the floor. Let's call a second to that motion. We have a second to that motion.
Second.
Good. Okay, we got a second to that motion. Now, we have a second to the motion. Any more discussion? Okay?
Discussion. Just, no, just like Mayor was saying, in his comments, my function here is to protect the interest of the city and the residents of Buckingham. the interpretation and the thoughts and the beliefs that other people have, I have no control over. But my function is to protect the interests of the city, do the best that I can with the information that I have, and move forward. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a vote on this roll call, Mr. Valverde.
To vote for,
Is to vote to not sign the contract to do it with the office. Okay, Mr. Steins?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Stan? Yay.
To
Sellers?
Thank
Okay, Mr. Burton? Okay, 1 nay, 1 sustained, 3 yeas. Okay, motion carries. So where are you going to put the mayor's office? You have a mayor for the city of Valpointe
I
Heights?
have a suggestion.
Down there. So,
We have the building next to the maintenance department that is of no use to anyone, not being used, that we just rent out.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Sellers, I think that's an awesome idea. We don't have to pay rent, maybe a little bit of a couple of dollars to upgrade it. That would be a sufficient space for,
A great place for mayor's office.
I think so. Thank you, sir, for that suggestion.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sellers. So let's go ahead and move on to item number 4. And discussion regarding potential ballot initiatives, Texas LGC Chapter 174, Sub C. We're not gonna spend too much time on this, like we did on this other item. So I'm gonna allow minimal discussion on this, to move on down the meeting. We've got more important business to discuss. So we have, Ms. De Leon, item number 4, you're up. ma'am. I'm sorry? Okay. We have now Mr. Jimmy Hernandez. You're up again, Mr. Hernandez.
He left.
You left? Okay. We have Mr. Ben Madison, Police Department Support, item number 4.
That's being underdressed, I just came from the store. So I'm just really here to show some support for BHP. They've always been solid. I work for Hobby Lobby's Loss Prevention. I've spoken here before. Every single officer sitting in here that I can see. Every single officer in this room right now has assisted us. We deal with, we just did our inventory. We deal with 450 shoplifters a year in Balcony Heights alone. Balcony Heights has always been solid for us. They've always come out, they're on time. We just had an incident on Wednesday where somebody made a threat to shoot up our store. And because of the response of this department and the cooperation and the respect they have with us and with the mall specifically and everything they do, they're just always there for us. And they always help us. They make my employees feel safe. They help my management team feel safe. And honestly, I work with 4 different departments. I work with Leon Valley and I work with Selma. And out of all 3 of those departments, these guys are the top 10. Right? They're always solid, they're always respectful, they're always responsible. And there's nothing more that I could say. They're always here to help us. They've always helped out not only our shoplifters, but they've helped out citizens. And whenever we have a complaint or an issue with something, it gets addressed. So I'm just here to explain that to the council and to the mayor, so that way you guys understand that these guys are solid, that they've always done the best work they can do. They're always responsive, and that's the part of the reason I came to speak about it when you guys were gonna change the dispatching, because of the reason you guys have that good of a response is because, you guys keep that stuff around and you guys support these guys, and that's super important. And I'm just here to express that to you guys, so you guys understand how important it is. These guys continue to do what they're doing, and, I wanna thank all of them for that too. So, that's all I have.
Great. Where do you work at?
I work for Hobby Lobby's Loss Prevention Department.
And do you know what this initiative is about? The ballot initiative to review?
I understand it's about regarding something involving, their contracts. I'm more so just here to voice my, satisfaction and my respect for these guys, and, the fact that, they deserve that right to move up and do what they need to do too. And that goes back to what I said in the beginning of, they're always responsive, they're always respectful, they're always professional when they deal with us. I dealt with Rodriguez and Walker today for 2 arrests, and they were phenomenal. and they responded within minutes of us calling. So I'm just really here to show that support for them, so that way they understand and you guys understand how much of, how much support they really have. And I'm one of those people that's here to support them. I've worked with these guys for 4 years now almost, and every time, solid. I'm just here to express that to y'all. That's all.
Thank you. Great, thank you. We're grateful for them as well, all they do for us. This is not, you're learning a little bit, but this is not a pro or anti-police matter. This is a budgetary, sustainable matter of what our finances in the city can afford. And that's it. So,
I just want you guys to understand.
yeah, thank you.
For us and everybody in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, we have, Chairman Hernandez. He left.
Left.
He left again. Okay, so he left. All right, so, council, do you want to discuss anything about this? Number 4. Okay, Rachel Madison.
Hello, my name is Rachel Ronashek. I'm the owner of the Harrison Grant Apartments, also known as Balcones Urban Flats. I understand that there's some discussions around the police department. I'm not sure what it entails, but anything that could affect them negatively, my radar goes up. We purchased this property 3 years ago, and I was shocked at how bad the trespassers and the drug crime was on the property. Just to give a little example, I personally walked the vacant units on a daily basis and found a lot of trespassers had broken in, were staying in the units. There are a lot of drug paraphernalia around the property and in these vacant units where the trespassers broke into. I was overwhelmed. We own over 5 properties throughout Texas and never seen anything like this. It's the only community that I've seen it this bad. So I was overwhelmed. I did not feel safe for myself or my staff. I had to start taking the taser with me everywhere I went because there was somebody in the apartment that I did not want to interact with. And so I was at a loss. I kind of thought, what did we do when we purchased this property? I called the chief of police, John Aron, and I was so relieved to hear that he had our full support and he had his full support in cleaning up the property. I was glad to hear that somebody cared and wanted to do something about it. He and several other officers, several of them are here, had personally taken the time to meet with me at the property right away. And from there, we built a great relationship, which helped us clean up this property. Just after taking over the property, I also met with the city council members and distinctly remember the mayor at the time, Suzanne De Leon, sharing with us that Balcones Urban Flats was a stain of their community. And that's not something I want to hear after just purchasing it. But my eyes were open to kind of what the community was, and asked if we could help clean it up and was excited that we're here. So we've done a lot of work. We've made a lot of great strides in turning the property around. A large part of it is a partnership we've had with the police department, including dispatch. Dispatch and the police officers are extremely responsive and are very familiar with our property, which makes it seamless to coordinate with dispatch officers and our staff to locate these trespassers and other bad actors in real time. We have a huge camera system. They know the property well. We can tell them right away where people are at, and it's that real time that makes a difference because we can catch them in the act. They don't get off the property. We've had a significant decline in incidents with the trespassers and bad actors on our property, and I know that is because of how quickly they respond and handle these situations. We do have another property in San Antonio just up the street where we have to deal with the San Antonio dispatch and their police officers, and there's no comparison. As I mentioned, we have properties in San Antonio, Seguin, New Braunfels, Dallas, Fort Worth. All of them do not compare to the way the police department here responds. We would not survive without the police department and what they do for us. Without their continued support, we'd lose much of the progress we made over the last 3 years, and that would be very unfortunate. It's difficult to run a property, have good people move in when you can't maintain safety for the residents. We've gotten a lot of good feedback over the last few years that Balcones is different. Harrison Grant now. We're trying to rebrand it, and they feel a lot safer there, and from the other communities that they're coming from say they feel a lot safer, and that's a big compliment to us, and I think the partnership we've had with the police department. And I do feel that they are what keeps this community together, and in my humble opinion, they are one of the biggest accomplishments the city has, including the fire department. They've been a huge help for us as well, and I've never come across officers that are so eager to help, are extremely good at what they do, and that take pride in the city. They give it their all every day, and that's not an easy task in Balcones, given the people that we come across every day. But they're there, and I'm glad they are. And lastly, you see the recent events in LA where funding was taken away for first responders, and that's not going well, and being able to address the needs of the community. And so I just want to make sure, for us residents and those people in this community, just want to make sure that we have the support we need to be able to grow and do well, and that's with the help of the police department and the fire department. So that's my experience, and just want to share that, and hopefully we can continue to do well with this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lincoln. Appreciate your recognition.
Did you mention it was Harrison Apartments, the show?
Harrison Grant?
Harrison Grant, yeah. Thank you so much for coming before us, and,
I have an address on, I don't know where that,
where's the address at, man?
4210, Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg Road.
So, thank you so much again. We value officers, what they do. Fire department is, you're gonna learn, just like I mentioned with the other gentleman, this has to do nothing to do with being pro-police or anti-police. We totally appreciate them. We try to compensate them as much as possible. This is more about a budgetary concern that we have. It's not going to affect their response times, service times, or anything like that. It's not gonna be a reduction of officers or anything. It's a matter of collective bargaining, basically union. And that we can no longer afford. So, I'm sorry, anybody, okay.
May I discuss the agenda items?
So this, you mentioned you want citizens to speak, so if you mind. So Lamar, Jimmy, do you still want to speak?
I'll defer until I hear from the councilman. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. White? Item number 4.
Council, Mayor, basically I just scanned the agenda item. So this is basically about the police having the right to strike, is that it? No? No?
May I respond to that?
Yes, go right
So the
ahead.
police are not legally allowed to strike. So
I didn't think so, because they're civil
so
servants.
that is not what this is regarding.
This is regarding, what is that?
May I talk about the agenda?
Yes, somebody still have the floor.
So, this is in response to the mayor's article that he put in the city newsletter, where he is talking about the need, in his opinion, to address the collective bargaining with the police department. So, we have a law under the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 174, which allows municipalities, that was adopted by the city of Balcones Heights, that allows municipalities to enter into collective bargaining agreements with unions, with the Police Officer Association. So what the mayor is wanting to do is have a petition amongst the city that would put it on the ballot to repeal this law, Chapter 174. That would prevent the city from having the ability to collective, I'm sorry, I'm talking.
Garth, the moment I know that you were gonna start bringing that up, I asked him, could you do so or not? He said no. And the reasoning is because this is not a measure in that newsletter, there's no language in there about a referendum for an election, a referendum for anything. We removed all that language from there to make it legally compliant, that it's just an informational update to the citizens on collective bargaining, what it is. That's it, and how it affects our budget. So therefore, your statement is Not correct, sir. You need to correct your statement and how you're addressing it. Because you're not telling the citizens
I'm
correctly.
telling the citizens what I think is going
But that's what you think, sir. You can't do that.
Can I not share my opinion
You
as
can
to what
share
I
your
believe the
opinion.
mayor's intent is?
You can share your opinion as to what his intent is. Yeah,
That's
your
what
council
my
discussion.
opinion is. His intent is to have this petition signed by the city.
That was not within the newsletter, sir. Councilman. And that, I called
Well,
Frank today about it.
That's correct. We discussed this issue,
Right.
and in particular, whether or not that he had reviewed the newsletter comments with you, and then
Correct.
specifically to make it comply with,
Correct.
because the city is under various agreements and also under obligations under the existing statute to operate in a certain way. So certain comments by the council or the city could be perceived as violating those arrangements. So for that reason, council should be careful in terms of, in terms of how they address these particular issues, because at the moment, there's just been this comment in the newsletter.
That's it.
If
I did not say that there is currently a petition. I said I believe that's what the mayor's intent is. So is that allowable?
that's allowable.
Okay, thank you. So again, I believe it is the mayor's intent to have a petition to put it on the ballot in May to repeal the law that allows the city to have a collective bargaining agreement with the police department.
What concern is that of yours? It's a citizen's decision.
Well, and
That should be not even, you're a council person.
I'm a
You
citizen as
shouldn't-
well. So, but may I continue? Because I'm trying to address this question. So, repealing this law does not negate the contract that we have with the police department. The contract is in place until June of 2027, regardless of what we do. If we put it on the ballot and 100% of the voters say we want to repeal this law, it doesn't negate the contract that we have with the Police Officers Association. It's still in place. All of their COLA adjustments, all of their annual increases or biannual pay increases, step increases are still in place. Okay? So it doesn't do anything to address our budget issues. What it does is it would prevent us in June, when the contract opens up for negotiation by the contract language, it would prevent us from being able to enter into that negotiation in June, because we would not have the legal authority to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with them. So, in effect, what this does is it hamstrings the city and locks us into the current pay structure, which the mayor says is unsustainable. Now, I agree that we need to have conversations with the police and we need to look at this, the compensation, and negotiate with them in good faith in June. But if this potential ballot initiative gets put in place and gets voted for, we will not have that authority, will not have that ability. That's my concern.
And that's not absolutely true. What it is that if the citizens, like you said, are the ones that are going to be voting on this and desire to vote on this, they're the ones that make the decision whether it's going to stay in collective bargaining or not. And in the collective bargaining, the reason it needs to be looked at right now is that when in 27 comes up, we don't have to come back and revisit this again. It's null and void. If the citizens said, we want out of collective bargaining because we can't afford it anymore, and every single city administrator that we have has said that we cannot afford to sustain collective bargaining anymore. Now, I don't get to make that choice. The citizens do, all right? But in order for it to be placed on the agenda, citizens have to appeal, or they have to do a petition, all right? All I did, and he's trying to accuse me again of something, and all I'm doing is I provided in the newsletter factual information pertaining to how collective bargaining has affected our budget and how it's going to affect it tremendously in the future. And it's one of the albatrosses, in addition to the WODA problem that we have, in addition to the over-salary employees that we have, and overabundance employees that we have, and the repetitious positions that I have been giving information to the citizens. So all I did with my part as mayor is give that information to the citizens to absorb, to review, to look at it, so that when the citizens decide to come with a petition, that they will understand what it's about. It's not for pro-police, and it's not against police. It is the city, citizens saying, We can no longer afford to sustain under the small city that we are, the budget that we operate at a borderline where we're receiving revenues of 8 million and we are spending $9 million in our budget. That we can no longer sustain that, and with the anticipated non-revenue generating money that was supposed to come in from the grand idea of investing $5 million in water has not produced any income that is for the city to level out. The loss of the $500,000 on the red light cameras, in addition to that, is close to $1 million, $900,000 loss that we are facing every year on top of increased demands from the collective bargaining that will ask for, every time they come to negotiate, for more raises, grade pay increases, benefits, and right now, they have some of the best benefits and some of the best wages in cities, as Mr. Valverde showed in his comparison to other cities.
Mr. Valverde said that.
Yes, and so it's
We're the only city our size with collective bargaining.
whether a city or size can afford to continue to remain in collective bargaining. That's all it boils down to. Whether the citizens want to continue or not. And basically, what Mr. Steins is advocating is what he just said. So, go ahead, Mr. Steins.
Thank you. So, your statement was misleading at best. So, I'll just read from your newsletter. It is important to note that the current compensation and benefits for police officers are very competitive and in line with industry standards for a city of our size. So we're not, as you just said, paying them too much money. We're paying them in line. We're paying them competitively. We're paying actually a little bit below the average for municipalities in our area. If you take the 10 city average. Again, you said that we are spending $9 million against our budget of $8 million. I would ask Mr. Messick to clarify, do we have a budget deficit or do we have a balanced budget?
Sir, we have a balanced budget, a general fund of $6 million.
We have to have a balance.
So, but you're saying that we have a $9 million expense with an $8 million budget. You're indicating that we have $1 million.
Read what it says in the budget when we have our budget process. His own words, he said, we have an $8 million revenue and we have a $9 million expenditure. And I said, how do you conduct business in a city operating under those terms? And coming with a deficit, since 2015, we have had to deal with deficits every year of the city. And you want to continue this collective bargaining, which is an albatross on the neck of the city.
We start.
And you know why?
Two things.
Because you want to get their endorsement.
Two things.
You want to get their endorsement.
Two things. We start with the deficit because our revenues are 2 months in arrears, right, because of our sales tax. So we start with the deficit, and we build up and figure out what our revenues are, balance it that way. Okay, so that's how budgets are done.
Pay it any way you want.
So the other thing is we do have a balanced budget, and in your own words, you said they are fairly compensated. They're very competitive and in line with industry standards for a city of our size. Now, again, if this does get put on the ballot and if voters vote to repeal this law, it doesn't end the current contract. So we will continue paying COLA. We will continue paying step increases until June of 2027. However, we have the opportunity in June to review the contract and renegotiate the compensation. If this gets repealed, we will not have that ability. So you're wanting to put on the ballot.
Not being specific.
Well, it's your potential ballot initiative.
Sorry, the petition is by the citizen. So that's a false statement. Let's go on, Councilman Summers.
I wanted to ask Mr. Sonic a question. You know what year COLA came into existence in city property management?
I'm sorry?
What year did we adopt COLA?
I'm not sure.
What year did we adopt collective bargaining agreement?
I'm not sure. It's before my time.
What year did we adopt police officer association?
I'm not sure. It was early 2000s. But
you know, 40 years ago, we didn't have none of that.
Well, 40 years ago,
You know, and we had a
the
better
environment
city,
was much
less
different.
crime, less police officers.
But Mr. Sellers, that was true across the entire country. So,
I can answer the question if the mayor lets me answer the question that Mr. Sellers
You
asked.
have your chance, you have it in just a little bit after everybody finishes. You want to, you want to hear
Just
what
put
you have
your-
to say.
Police Officers Association,
So hold on, Mr. Gibbons. Mr. Sellers, you still have the floor.
All right, but you're with it.
may I? You
The
asked,
mayor will allow you.
Go ahead.
the Police Officers Association was, I think it was first signed in 2001. What was your other two questions?
That's the Police Officers Association
2001.
and the COLA
Total was 2007, because I was on the finance committee.
and collective bargaining agreement.
The collective bargaining agreement goes all the way back to 2001.
2001 also.
Yeah, absolutely. And may I speak about number 4? I was signed up.
Mayor, I yield.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gibbons.
Uh, I've negotiated, and it's my fault. Okay, let's clear the room about that. It's my fault. I've negotiated 6 with a contractual agreements with Malcolm Heights Police Officers Association. I negotiated it, but the council approved it, okay? Now, I want to clarify something about salary. I hear about, well, that salary's too high, this salary's too high. We have a very rigid process in the agreement, the VHPOA agreement. We have 10 suburban cities, not the city of San Antonio, not the highest, but 10 in the city. You want the names of them, go look at the contract. We do a survey with those cities, and we also survey the non-contractual people, city secretary, municipal court, finance director, so forth and so on. We line all those numbers up, put them on a spreadsheet, you correct me if I'm wrong, put them on a spreadsheet, take an average, and it gives you the average starting salary for a police officer, police sergeant, police lieutenant. It also gives you the average salary for instance, a finance director, municipal court clerk, so forth and so on. We don't pull numbers out of the air. We do a survey. We go into the contract and negotiate only the police officers. We try to accommodate whatever changes there are in non-contractual folks, but we don't have to. So we come up with those numbers. Mayor, what I'd like to say about your last letter is that last paragraph that was partially read by Councilman Science. Our police officers are fairly compensated based on the average of those 10 cities. Not the highest, not the lowest, but the average. And I think it's a fair process. Maybe it is. Maybe the city can't afford that. But if you can't afford it, you're not going to get the same caliber of people coming to our city to work. Because they'll go somewhere other place. It's happening in the fire department right now. Right, Chief? You have guys, you're losing guys right now because they're going to another city that pays $2,000 more a year. And that's going to happen to us. We will not have this qualified. We do not want to go back to 2014. And those that have been here around long enough know what a problem we had in the PD in 2014. I think by paying the right salary and doing the right qualification checks on these officers that come in, we'll get the best police force in Bexar County. Thank you.
So again, you have to work on what the city can afford, not what your studies show or what you're looking outside to other cities. It's what the city of Balcones Heights can afford, and we cannot afford it. So we can clearly see how those years of negotiation have got us to be where we're at now.
Let me say one more thing, because you just attacked me personally.
You yourself said it. You were the one.
No, I'm not upset. I'm just stating the fact.
No, I said you said you're the one who negotiated.
I did negotiate. I'm proud I represented our city in those negotiations. But, like, exactly, all 6 of them. Just because we come up with that average, doesn't mean we have to take that average. That was action approved by the council, okay, after looking at the numbers. In the last contracts that we did, they were prior to, my fault again, the failure of the revenue coming in from the mall, and also the fall of red light cameras. And that was kind of a bullet in our own foot, because we had a council member complain about the cameras and so forth on the road. And I think that had a significant impact in the contract not being renegotiated and established for another 10 years. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. But just because we come up with an average doesn't mean we have to stay with it. We negotiated. And that negotiation was done between 2 parties. It was brought to the council, and it was approved by the council. Mayor probably has a good point. We're in dire straits right now, because as he said, we lost 400,000 or he said 500,000 red light camera, it's more like 400. And we lost 400,000 because we're not getting anything from the mall. That's 800,000, approaching $1 million, as the mayor said. Yeah, there's some significant problems here, and we gotta work on them. But we gotta get together to work on them, guys. We can't sit here and fight about it all the time. And we can't keep reminding prior administrations and prior elected officials that they messed up. That doesn't help at all.
So, anybody else have any other comments?
Yes.
Councilman Sellers?
I would like to, point of order, and to ask Councilman Simon, what do you want to do? Item 4.
Manager.
Yes, discussion.
Yeah, this is just a discussion to make sure that the citizens are aware of potential actions that may be coming. Also to ensure that citizens are informed of what this decision could do. So, again, repealing this law does not cancel the current contract. It's in place until June of 2027.
Okay.
So if we
You are
do,
aware that, as the mayor said, it's the citizens vote on repealing it, not
right,
us.
right, I know,
It's gonna take 5% of 3,000 registered voters to do that.
no, it's 5% of the amount of people that voted in the previous election.
5% of
To get
registered
put on.
voters, Balcony Heights.
It's 25% of the people that voted in the previous election, so November of 2024. So whatever number that is the number that will be required to sign that petition and then to be put on the ballot. Okay, and then the citizens have to understand before they vote that repealing this law does not stop the current contract. Okay, it doesn't help. Repealing it actually hurts our budget because we're stuck in the current COLA and annual pay or biannual pay increases. Okay, and the step increases.
Nobody's here asking for a motion to.
There's no. This is strictly
You've
discussion.
informed us. In fact, I know something that I didn't know before, that renegotiation is coming up.
It's coming up in June.
So we'll address it then.
If we
can just move on.
That's the thing, Mr. Sellers. If this repeal passes, we will not have the ability to negotiate in June.
Clearly understood.
And we need that. So that's why that's why I want the citizens to be informed of what I believe the mayor is trying to do.
Because it's not gonna change anything whatsoever in the compensation for the officers in their current status. All it does,
That's exactly what I just said.
it prevents it from any renegotiations, any negotiations, anything. It stops right there. Because the citizens have said, we no longer want to sustain this amount of
May I continue? May I respond? Because you're repeating exactly what I just said. It stops us from being able to negotiate further, which includes June of 2025, when their compensation opens up for renegotiation. But we need that negotiation period in June of 2025 to try to strike a better deal. Right, and that's why I want them to be informed.
Yeah.
Because you've been misleading them this entire time.
The citizens will say that we'll have their per se. I also would like the citizens to recognize that during the last legislature, they did establish a minimum salary for officers. So where we're at, we're right in range with what the state mandates that we pay our officers. So regardless of what our numbers are, the state tells us the base pay we have to provide to officers. It's in the legislation. The same way you asked me, look it up.
No, you were supposed to put supporting documentation. You were supposed to say.
This was my agenda item, and I did provide supporting documentation. And you have told me that in the past, when I asked for it.
Call the question.
Exactly what you said. Call the question.
There's no question, this is just a discussion.
Okay. Let's move on.
Next topic.
So item number 5, consideration, oh, Charlie, did you have one last thing?
Well, keep saying there's no negotiation in June, but then if you took it out for 2 years, there is no association with you.
Here's the deal, he's saying it's unsustainable now. So if it's unsustainable now, it's unsustainable.
You control the budget. So if you only have so much money to give the police department, fire department, or other things, it's up to them to work within that budget. Period.
That's not the way the contract is. We're required to give them COLA and their step increases.
But there's
So
only
right now,
so
we've
much.
got to renew the current contract. It doesn't matter.
If there's only so much money you can give them, then that's it.
It doesn't, no, the contract requires it.
There
So
you go. See, that is why it's dangerous to continue in that contract. Because the city doesn't have, you just said it,
again,
you just clarified, the city does not have.
you're
The
misunderstanding.
city does not have.
Does not end
You have to go into.
if the law is
negotiation.
repealed.
So you're forced. They have a negotiation. It's forced. It's in the contract.
It's a negotiation, it's
It's an opportunity to get June.
We don't have collective bargaining, we don't have to deal with that. We can make that decision based on the council's decision without having that gun to our head. And the only reason you're back here is because it's very clear you want their endorsement. That's what it is. You're coming up to election day, and you're coming up to election day, both of you.
Also, the way
And
you're
that's
saying,
why
the residents.
you are wanting their endorsement. And they're not gonna succeed because they didn't succeed in the last election. People are wise to them as well.
You're very much, you're misunderstanding, you're misunderstanding. That's not
Consider
right.
an action to ratify the contract with Westpark Construction Inc. for the sewer line repair at Waterburger. Mr. Anderson, Ms. Anderson, go on. That is best.
The city is requesting ratification of the contract with West Star Construction in the amount of $29,200 for urgent sewer repairs performed at 4502 Birchwood Road. The staff report was provided with background details regarding this emergency, which allowed the previous interim city administrator to bypass normal procedure requirements. I'm available to answer any questions if you have any at this time.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilman Brett.
The repair's been made already, right?
That's correct.
Was it within his budget constraints?
It was over 25,000, if that's what you're asking, which it was deemed an emergency by the previous city interim administrator, which allows for that to bypass those procedures, as it was an emergency.
Do you remember what year Whataburger was constructed?
I
can't.
I was trying to find that information, and I know it was prior to what we have in our software system.
It's crazy to think that they were allowed to come into a clay pipe. They let it happen. All right, is this action item? So,
Yes.
does anybody else have any questions? If you got a deal, let's move forward. I move to make a motion to approve the contract with Westar. It's already a done deal.
I think we all wanted a second.
And just on discussion, Mr. Burton, it is not a matter that they tie into the claim. If that's what SOS has, that's what we have to tie into. It's just whatever SOS has in place. You don't get to pick and choose.
Mayor, we need you to proceed with the meeting, please. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
At this time, consulting with the attorney. Give me a second. Okay.
Mr. Burton made a motion, David Sellers seconded.
Okay, call for any further discussion on that? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Mr. Valverde?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Yay.
Mr. Taylor?
Yay.
Mr. Sellers?
Yay.
Mr. Burton?
Yay with a fine price.
Okay, 5-1 motion carried. All right, discussion of possible action to set salary for the current interim city administrator, Mr. Messick, you're up. Sir?
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council, at the previous meeting, you selected an interim city administrator, but we failed to set a price for it. Staff agenda requests that it's the same price basically that Mr. Warren had been receiving.
Sure. One word, should we discuss this?
I can call it into executive session if you want. So I have the authority to do so.
Does that require?
It doesn't matter, I have the authority to call it into.
Just read that council, closed session. Yes, the mayor can go ahead and read the council to closed session. Once we have the authority to enter into closed session on any agenda item.
That's correct. So, I think we should discuss this in executive session because it may get contentious. And I think we should just go ahead and move into executive session.
The only reason why I was asking was to the negotiations for
That is absolutely.
the next topic, which is an executive session, which is.
So the time is, let's move forward. Time is 8:22 p.m. We are now moving into executive session on discussion of this salary.
Make recess.
No,
I'm going to recess.
I would request a short break.
Let's vote, let's move forward.
I'm going to step I'm going to step away.
Both of you need to handle
Okay, we pause.
Where's my cursor? Yeah, you can. I can't find my cursor. I can't see it, I'm on the side. I know. I mean, oh, just pause.
We are in open session.
So I'm going to open into closed session, the agenda item is already.
That is correct. Number
We'll
6.
return to that item.
Number 6.
So,
So we will now be, we will now discuss the possible action to set salary for the current interim city administrator.
May I be recognized?
Yes, go ahead.
I move to make a motion to approve the temporary pay increase for the interim city administrator to $115,000 on an annual basis from January 6th, 2025, until the new city administrator is hired and appointed.
Read the rest of
And
it.
then, and then he reverts back to his normal salary.
I second that.
Okay, we have a second by Councilman Stellers. Any more discussion? So for the record, I want to say that I object to this. and I
Mayor,
believe that we should be-
in your microphone, please.
So for the record, I want to state that I object to this publicly. I don't think we should be paying our interim city administrator, as he's an acting city administrator, $115,000 annually for this, so I object to it. Okay, now, call the roll.
If I may, if I may, I think we have to have discussion before we can vote. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that it's not 115,000, it's just a difference from his salary to 115,000.
It's still 115,000, so.
Okay, it's.
Okay,
it's slight.
Mr. Valverde, vote. Yay. Mr. Stein?
Yay.
Mr. DeSale?
Yay.
Mr. Stellers?
Yay.
Mr. Burton?
I'll say yay.
Okay,
If it's 2,500.
all right, so,
$14 an hour if you have
motion passes,
8,700 hours in a year.
motion passes. Now, we will go into, we don't need to go anything on the personnel matters, correct?
we've already had that.
discussions, we have discussions, you do need to make a motion. So, and may I be recognized?
Do you have any item number 7?
No, item number 7, basically, in both we have agenda request, by mayor and councilman to place on future city, council agenda. So we want to go ahead and do that? Okay, let's go ahead and move to item number 7, agenda item.
Number 7, I noticed that we moved out the section where we used to have comments. Is that just because it's a special meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item request by mayor and councilman to place on the future city council agenda. Anything on, once you add it this time, of course you have the time to do it later if you. Okay, none, let's move on to item number 8. So, we have a motion on the floor for that?
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Did you want something on the agenda?
Number 7, I wanted to ask what's the deal with the code enforcement officer's application? The last meeting we had a code enforcement officer, and I believe Councilman Sines wanted, or maybe it was the mayor who wanted more applicants instead of just one recommendation.
He's been hired already.
He's
Been hired already?
He's in your application, sir. Yeah, that's
Been hired already.
Hurry up and get
Okay, could I ask how many hats he's wearing?
Right now, he's code enforcement, code compliance.
He's supposed to be animal control, code compliance,
He is qualified for all of that, yes, sir, but he's just getting his feet wet right now.
yeah, he's gotta be wearing more than one hat. And that was a recommendation for hiring him, if I recall. We cannot hire a full-time code enforcement officer if that's all he does.
No, right now he's new, so that's all he's doing right now, but he is certified for animal control. He'll be helping out with the permits, all those things that were talked about.
Yeah, I'd like to know next council meeting what the hell he's doing.
And I'd like
Be
to,
surprised, like we did the last lady, okay, who did nothing for $35,000.
and if I may, yes, I'm a little bit perplexed on that because when I looked up the openings that we had, I didn't see anything for code compliance. I did see a code permit clerk, full-time, but I never saw a code compliance, so just, we get clarification on how that was done, unless I missed it. But I didn't see anything for code compliance.
Yeah, we haven't hired for the permit technician yet, it has been closed. Closed it.
That is still
Okay, so the permit clerk, the code compliance was never advertised? Is what I'm asking.
No, it's only somebody that we recommended, our board recommended a code compliance officer. Somebody suggested, I don't know, with Mark or the mayor, that we get more applicants. That never happened, the guy was hired.
Okay, so the clarification is that was
That's what
never posted.
That's what
Okay, and because I was curious why we were in a hurry to get him in, but that answered my
Done
question.
deal. Now we need to know how many houses, where, what he's doing.
Agreed, thank you.
Okay,
For clarification purposes, Mr. Sellers, do you want that on the agenda for? Thank you.
seems to be a qualified guy.
I mean, I don't even know what his salary is, I don't know when he was hired, I don't know nothing
That's
about
under
it.
That's not within our, it's a city administrator.
He doesn't have to respond or tell us about it or anything. He doesn't, he should, but he doesn't.
We should know.
Can we move on to
But
8?
that's oversight again. So let's move on to number 8. So Mr. Sines, you want to go ahead and you have a motion on the floor?
Thank you. I'll move to make a motion to direct the interim city administrator to arrange interviews and begin the initial review of the candidates that we identified during the executive session.
Which I'll provide to Mr. Matthew.
Is that okay?
Executive session. Okay. Do we have a second to
The
that?
5 names.
We have a second to that? Second. Second by Mr. Lysia. Any more discussion? Okay, let's do a roll call. Mr. Valverde?
Yay.
Mr. Sines?
Yay.
Mr. Lysia?
Yay.
Mr. Sellers?
Yay.
Mr. Burton? Okay, so the motion carries 5-0. We'll get through the Mr. Mexican, I'll give you those names. And pursuant to what they counsel and agreed collectively over this. So, now we'll go ahead and move forward. We have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, the time is 9:26 PM. Motion has been made to adjourn. Mr. Valverde? Yay. Mr. Sines?
Yay.
Mr. Lyceum? Yay. Mr. Burton, Mr. Sellers?
Yay.
Burton? Okay, motion carries.